Before a single shot was fired, before a whisper turned into action, before a general dared blink, the regime should have collapsed, but it didn't. Because when the last coup began, it didn't start with chaos. It started with stillness, radios dead, doors locked, phones unanswered. And as confusion filled the air, one figure stood calm, unshaken. Ibrahim Traoré. And when the plot unraveled, he wasn't hiding, he was present, not in a palace, but beside his men. And those who tried to take him down, they vanished. Just like that. Not luck, not fear, a deeper force. And in the next minutes, you'll find out what truly keeps him standing when others fall. Before we dive in, don't miss the rest of this story. Subscribe and stay with us as we uncover the hidden architecture of power in Africa today. So how does a young leader survive in a land where loyalty shifts with the wind? Not through fear, not through bribes, through belief. The backbone of Traoré's protection isn't just soldiers with guns. It's something much rarer. A military that sees him not as a president, but as one of them. His elite unit, forged not in boardrooms but on battlefields, doesn't just guard his life. They carry his mission. They don't serve a man, they serve a movement. Traoré didn't create loyalty with words. He earned it with presence. When insurgents struck, he didn't retreat to marble halls. He wore the same uniform, stood in the same dust, risked the same bullets. And that changed everything. His officers weren't picked for their connections or obedience. They were selected for vision. A vision of a Burkina Faso that bends to no one. A military realigned not to foreign needs, but to national survival. Gone are the foreign trainers, NATO advisors, and whispered dependencies. In their place, a lean, ideologically driven force, trained locally, equipped through new partnerships, and anchored in anti-imperial self-defense. Soldiers now deploy based on real-time intelligence from local sources, not global spreadsheets. They don't guard a state, they guard a future. And that future, for the first time in generations, feels real. The army isn't just responding to orders, it's responding to purpose. Coup attempts have happened. More than once, yet none succeeded. Not one, because the chain of command doesn't break, it believes. This isn't how most African militaries function. This is something else, something new, something dangerous. Not for Burkina Faso, but for anyone who wants to see it fail. Let me ask you, what would it take for a soldier to defend a politician with his life? Not salary, not fear, faith. Traoré gave them that. By turning every military win into a shared legacy, by framing every threat as a strike not just on him, but on the soul of the uniform. In a continent where armies have often been used, ignored, discarded, he gave them meaning. But soldiers are only part of the shield. To understand why Traoré hasn't fallen, we must step beyond the checkpoints and trenches and into the hearts of the people. This is your reminder. If you want to witness stories no one dares tell, subscribe now. Don't miss what comes next. Because in Burkina Faso, power isn't just held in barracks, it lives in the streets. You can build the strongest army, you can have weapons, walls, and watchtowers. But what happens when the people themselves decide your fall is unacceptable? Not because you promised them luxury, but because you reminded them of dignity. In Ouagadougou, morals speak louder than officials. Thomas Sankara's face, freshly painted, stares back beside Ibrahim Traoré, not because anyone ordered it, but because something old, something sacred has returned. A fire once thought extinguished now burns again. Not in speeches, but in silence. In the eyes of grandmothers in marketplaces, in the chants of youth who've never seen freedom but feel it coming. This isn't political excitement, it's something deeper. A civilian shield that forms not out of fear, but unfinished business. When a coup was uncovered in early 2025, the soldiers weren't the first to move. It was the civilians. Men, women, elders. No political banners, just purpose. Blocked roads, formed walls, and said one thing, not this time. We won't let it happen again. Because they remember. They remember what was taken. Gold shipped out raw, schools that taught obedience, not pride. Decisions made not in their name, but in foreign tongues. And now, after decades of being told they are too poor, too weak, too small, they have a leader who says no, loudly, proudly, publicly. That no echoes in the mosques, in the markets, on social media feeds lit with hope instead of heartbreak. And across borders, Burkina voices rise. From Mali to Côte d'Ivoire, even in Paris, the diaspora is speaking, funding, organizing, remembering. This isn't politics. It's memory turning into movement. Let's pause. If you've ever felt your history erased, your dignity stolen, your pride silenced, drop a comment below. Your voice matters. We're here to amplify it. Now let's continue. In most countries, when a president stumbles, the crowd steps back. In Burkina Faso, when Traore is threatened, the crowd steps forward. That flips the script. That scares the powerful. Because you can bribe a general, you can infiltrate a cabinet. But how do you fight conviction? How do you stop an entire people from defending their own story? Western outlets call it radical youth. Diplomats whisper of unexpected resistance. But they don't get it. This isn't youth. It's ancestors. It's Sankara's ghost refusing to stay buried. And when a nation remembers not just where it's going, but who it buried to get there, it becomes ungovernable in the old ways. But here's the twist. Popular support alone doesn't hold up a government. It only becomes unshakable when that support goes regional. When one country's hope becomes another's inspiration. That's what's happening now. The next layer of Traore's protection isn't military. It's an alliance. One that could rewrite the entire map of West African power. If you believe African unity is more than a dream, tell us below. Would you defend your neighbor's freedom like your own? And if this story matters to you, subscribe now. What comes next could change everything you thought you knew about power in Africa. Traore's strength doesn't end at Burkina Faso's borders. In fact, that's where it begins to multiply. Because today, he's no longer standing alone. He's part of something bigger. Something formed not in conference rooms, but in the ashes of betrayal. The alliance of Sahel states. 3 nations, 1 pact. And for the first time in decades, West Africa isn't waiting for permission. It's building a future without it. Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger. Each of them bled. Each of them watched promises fade. Each of them saw soldiers rise, leaders fall, and foreign flags pretending to offer peace while feeding chaos. But now they've said no. Not separately, but together. That no has become a wall. And Traore, he's one of its cornerstones. The AES isn't a symbolic gesture. It's a defensive pact. Military, economic, ideological. An attack on one is an attack on all. That means if a foreign hand touches Traore, it won't face a solo state. It'll face a coordinated response from 3 angry nations who've had enough. They're not just exchanging speeches. They're sharing intelligence, synchronizing command chains, training border forces, planning counterinsurgency operations with one goal: survival. Not just from militants in the hills, but from boardrooms in Brussels and whispers in embassies. But this isn't just about guns. It's about dignity. The AES is building an economic escape hatch. All 3 countries pulled out of ECOWAS. They're talking new currency, ending dependence on the CFA franc. They're investing in local refining. No more raw exports that benefit outsiders more than citizens. It's not just resistance. It's a redesign. And the West? They're watching, nervous. Because when poor nations stop asking for help and start helping themselves, that's when real panic sets in. Burkina Faso's gold, Mali's minerals, Niger's uranium, once controlled from abroad, are now guarded by an ideology that can't be bribed. Across these lands, new media ecosystems rise. National broadcasters echo each other, spread truth before lies can grow. Coup plots are no longer secrets. They're exposed before they breathe. And behind every message is a people who no longer apologize for wanting freedom. So what happens when ideology crosses borders? It becomes harder to kill. You can remove a president. You can't remove an idea carried in 3 tongues, in 3 armies, in 3 million fists. Traore, Goita, Kiani, three leaders who didn't rise by luck, but by collapse. They saw the cracks in the old world and stepped through. Their bond isn't formed by handshakes, it was baptized in chaos, and now it shields them all. And here's the warning, for any force that once relied on one coup, one puppet, one intervention, that era is over. Because if one falls, they all strike back. The cost is no longer contained, it's regional, and the fire of rebellion is ready to spread. Do you believe this is the beginning of true African independence? Let us know in the comments. We want to hear your voice, and don't forget, if this message inspires you, subscribe. We're not just building videos, we're building awareness. In the next part, we'll uncover the layer of power that no satellite can see, no newspaper can print, and no enemy can infiltrate. The layer that watches and acts before danger even has a name. This isn't just about armies or alliances anymore. It's about shadows, the kind of power that doesn't need a press release or a parade. So before we go deeper, make sure to subscribe, not to follow a man, but to follow truth where few dare to look. And if you believe silent protection is louder than bullets, let us know in the comments below. While the streets roar and the borders tighten, the most powerful protection around Traore remains almost invisible. Because in Burkina Faso, real defense doesn't wait for danger to knock. It erases it before the knock happens. Behind every calm day in Ouagadougou is a night filled with whispers intercepted, threats dissolved, and conspiracies erased before they had time to breathe. Since taking power, Traore has been the target of more than one coup attempt, yet not one has led to chaos. Not a single gunfight, not a public manhunt, only quiet detentions, sealed files, and one consistent message. We saw you before you moved. That's not surveillance. That's penetration. His security system doesn't monitor threats. It lives inside them. The intelligence structure under Traore is not what foreign analysts are used to. It's not bloated with bureaucracy. It's not outsourced to former colonial powers. It's lean, fast, ruthless, built from combat-tested officers, digital tacticians, and field informants. They don't work from skyscrapers. They work from trenches, internet cafes, backrooms, and marketplaces. And they don't ask for permission. They act. This team is not loyal to an office. They are loyal to the revolution itself. That's what makes it dangerous. Not to the people, but to anyone planning to betray it. It isn't just a wall. It's a net that stretches across borders and across intentions. And it catches early, quietly. Even foreign embassies have felt it. Some diplomats were asked to leave without noise. Others were quietly observed, their meetings tracked, their contacts noted. Burkina Faso no longer believes in coincidence. And it doesn't play by old rules. If someone lands in Ouagadougou and speaks too softly, someone is already listening. This goes beyond physical safety. It enters the realm of psychological warfare. Because when rumors arise, and they do, they are swiftly followed by leaks, screenshots, audio files, alleged messages. Genuine or not, it doesn't matter. The result is the same: panic among plotters and growing confidence among citizens. The message is simple. We know. The intelligence network isn't just protecting Traore, it's protecting belief. It makes betrayal feel impossible, makes silence look suspicious. And when that happens, conspiracies stop not out of fear, but because there's no place left to breathe. Now ask yourself this: can a regime built on silence, speed, and shared purpose be undone by anything loud and clumsy? Or is it too deep now? Is the system too fused with the people it protects? Comment your thoughts. Would you feel safer in a country where danger disappears quietly, or one where it explodes on screens? Your view matters. Speak it. And don't forget to subscribe to stay with us as we go even further into the heart of this invisible armor. Because next we look at the final layer of protection. One that isn't military, political, or even strategic. It's older than any constitution. It's deeper than any alliance. It's belief. And it might be the only thing no bullet can break. Before we go further, take a moment and ask yourself this: can a leader be protected not by weapons or walls, but by memory, If that answer interests you, don't just watch, subscribe. Because what you're about to hear may be the most powerful form of defense any African state has ever seen. Not because it's modern, but because it's ancient. And if you feel it too, let us know in the comments. Tell us what you believe is worth defending. Now let's begin. There's something few analysts talk about when they discuss political survival. Not guns, not alliances, but ideology, the unseen shield, the kind of belief that lives inside people, not around them. And for Ibrahim Traoré, that belief didn't start with him. It began with a name buried deep in Africa's conscience, Thomas Sankara. For decades, Sankara's ghost haunted Burkina Faso, not as fear, but as unfinished promise. After his assassination in 1987, statues were built, streets renamed, documentaries filmed, but nothing brought back the fire. Until now, when Traoré stepped forward, he didn't promise wealth. He didn't read from a teleprompter. He looked a generation in the eye and said, "We will not be anyone's puppet. We will live with dignity. We will never be colonized again." He wasn't quoting Sankara, he was continuing him. And in the minds of many, that mattered more than any policy, because for the first time, the torch wasn't just remembered. It was lifted again. You see, belief does what bullets can't. It makes betrayal feel like blasphemy. It fuses leadership to memory. Across the nation, you won't just see Traoré's face. You'll see it beside Sankara's. Not out of nostalgia, but recognition. The people have decided this isn't a new leader. This is the next chapter. And that chapter can't be torn out without setting fire to the whole book. That belief has consequences. At rallies, people don't just wave flags, they hold portraits. In classrooms, teachers explain history, not from colonial textbooks, but from revolutionary echoes. In mosques, in cafes, in WhatsApp groups, the conversation is no longer about politics. It's about ownership. This country is ours, and we're not asking permission anymore. This isn't nationalism, this is spiritual immunity. And when belief becomes culture, something shifts. The crowd no longer watches, it guards, and not just physically, emotionally, morally, because now an attack on Traoré isn't just seen as political, it's seen as betrayal of a sacred trust. That changes everything. You can assassinate a man, you cannot assassinate a feeling. And Traoré understands this deeply. That's why his speeches aren't technical updates, they're rituals. He doesn't just talk about growth. He names the enemy, imperialism, exploitation, foreign interference. And then he points to the solution. Agriculture, youth, memory, identity. Every time he speaks, it's not just policy, it's psychological warfare, not against his people, for them, to remind them they are enough. Do you feel that matters? That belief in dignity is stronger than fear? Share your thoughts. And if you haven't yet, subscribe. We're not just reporting history, we're watching it happen. Because belief, once ignited, doesn't just protect a leader. It outlives him. It becomes inherited. And in Burkina Faso today, belief isn't a dream. It's a weapon, the rarest and perhaps the most dangerous of all. If you've made it this far, you're not just watching a story, you're living through a turning point. And if you're still with us, hit that subscribe button. Because what's happening now goes far beyond Burkina Faso. It's no longer about one man. It's not even about one country. It's about something much bigger. An idea whose time has come and whose echo is now heard across an entire continent. Traoré is no longer just a president. He's become a symbol, and symbols spread. What happens when belief refuses to stay within borders? It evolves, it multiplies, becomes dangerous, not to the people, but to the old systems that kept them quiet. Today across Africa, especially in the Sahel, you won't just hear praise for a politician. You'll hear the sound of something deeper. Recognition. That's what makes this moment historic. Because for the first time in decades, a post-colonial ideology is being felt not from outside, but from within. It's African-born, Africans defined, African defended. The speeches that Traoré gives in Burkina Faso are being quoted in Mali. The strategies he uses are discussed in Niger, in Senegalese student groups, in South African activist spaces, in Kenyan classrooms, and even in diasporas across Europe and the Americas, where Africans, once forced to look away from home, are now turning their gaze back. Something has shifted, and it's not just political, it's emotional, it's spiritual, it's historical memory waking up. The story of Sankara, once confined to nostalgic videos and street murals, now lives in strategy sessions, youth circles, and WhatsApp broadcasts. But it's more than legacy, it's now blueprint. And this blueprint has one core principle. Africa doesn't need to be managed. It needs to be trusted, respected, allowed to rise on its own terms. And that terrifies the old order. Because if Africans stop believing that foreign institutions are necessary, those institutions lose power. If we refine our own resources, train our own soldiers, write our own curriculums, what then happens to dependency? It crumbles. And with it, the false idea that Black nations must always be recipients, never designers. This is why what Traore represents is being labeled as radical, not because it's extreme, but because it's effective, because it spreads, because for the first time, dignity is being framed not as a dream, but as a right to control one's gold, to own one's soil, to tell one's story without apology. Media channels aligned with this new ideology aren't just broadcasting state news. They're pushing a counter-narrative. They're showing citizens what it means to own truth. Propaganda? Perhaps, but so was colonial education. The difference now is the narrative isn't designed to keep people down. It's built to lift them up. What's happening is a cultural rebellion, a rejection of the idea that power must always be soft-spoken, foreign-educated, and globally approved. Traore's strength lies not in his conformity, but in his defiance. And that's why it resonates. Because Africans have been waiting for a leader who doesn't flinch, who doesn't apologize, who looks at Western cameras and speaks like the soil matters more than the spotlight. Let us know in the comments, do you think Africa is finally claiming its own voice? Or is this just another cycle in a long struggle? We want to hear your thoughts. Every voice matters, especially yours. And don't forget to subscribe. We need you in this conversation. Because in the next part, we peel back the final curtain and enter the space where revolutions are either crushed or immortalized. The mind, the soul, the place where silence becomes resistance and memory becomes protection. And in that space, Traore isn't just guarded by forces you can see. He's protected by something no force can predict. You can assassinate a leader. You can rewrite laws. You can even shut down newspapers. But how do you kill an idea once it's inside the people? If you think belief can be more powerful than bullets, write it in the comments. Say it out loud. And if this voice speaks to yours, subscribe now, because what comes next may be the only kind of protection that lives on even after the man it defends is gone. Across history, regimes fall because their power is external. It depends on fear, on funding, on foreign approval. But once a leader is defended not by walls, but by belief, true soul-deep belief, that defense becomes nearly impossible to crack. Ibrahim Traoré has achieved something almost no modern African leader has. He's made resistance spiritual. His people don't just follow orders, they follow meaning. They don't just obey, they believe. What we're witnessing isn't just political survival, it's cultural resistance. And in Burkina Faso today, the strongest weapon in the revolution's arsenal isn't an army or an alliance. It's a mood, a code, a rhythm in the blood of its people that says, we will never go back. That kind of energy can't be faked. And once it exists, it reshapes everything. In the villages, you won't just hear praise for the president. You'll hear Sankara's name, spoken like scripture. In the cities, children learn not just the flag, but the story behind the soil it flies over. In music, in street art, even in silence, you can feel it. A sense that something precious is finally being protected. Not by government, by memory. And Traoré knows exactly what he's doing. His speeches are not just politics, they're rituals. Every word is chosen to remind the people that this fight is not just about Burkina Faso. It's about all of Africa. It's about dignity, about shaking off the dust of humiliation. When he says we will not be colonized again, it is not metaphor. It is oath. That oath has reshaped how people act, how they see, how they respond. Betrayal is no longer tolerated in whispers. It's exposed in daylight. Cowardice is shamed. Complicity is resisted. The crowd doesn't wait for instructions. It moves first. That is power. And it's terrifying, not to the people, but to those who once counted on their silence. Because here's the secret. The real revolution isn't in the streets. It's in the hearts. And when enough hearts beat together for the same purpose, no coup can divide them. Not for long. That's why even after multiple coup attempts, Traore is still standing. Not because he's a genius tactician, but because people believe his fall would be their own. And that belief is spreading across borders, into diasporas, into books, videos, university lectures, into homes. It's becoming harder for any foreign force to frame interference as help. The people have seen this movie before, and this time they're not watching. They're rewriting the script. Traore is no longer just the face of a government. He's the voice of a possibility that Africa can rise, not in apology, but in purpose. That its children can be taught not just to obey, but to create. That its resources can benefit its people first. That its pain can become strength. Do you believe in that possibility? Would you defend it? Share your thoughts in the comments, not just for us, but for everyone still waiting to be heard. And if you haven't already, subscribe. The truth has never been more urgent or more powerful. Because next we confront the ultimate question. Not what protects Traore, but what survives when he's gone. Will the system outlive the man, or is it the man who holds it all together? Let's get honest. Every revolution has a leader. But does every leader have a revolution that can survive without him? That's the question no one wants to ask, but we will. Because true power isn't about staying forever. It's about building something that does. Before we begin, if you believe movements should outlive their makers, subscribe now and share in the comments. Do you think Traore's vision will survive him? The truth is, no matter how strong a leader may appear, time eventually moves on. And history shows us, when charismatic figures disappear, their dreams often vanish with them. But in Burkina Faso today, the real test has already begun. Traore's system isn't built on his name alone. It's built on ideology, structure, and culture. But will that be enough? Let's take a closer look. Most post-coup regimes rely heavily on personality. One man, one voice, one decision maker. And when that man falls, the system crumbles like dust. But Traore took a different route. He didn't just demand loyalty, he built belief. Not just among soldiers or officials, but among citizens, artists, students, mothers, everyone. He reshaped military command not around himself, but around a doctrine of sovereignty. He didn't just centralize power, he distributed meaning. Officers know what they're defending. Citizens know what they're a part of. And that clarity creates resilience. It means the revolution isn't stored in a single person. It's embedded in the minds of thousands. But let's not lie to ourselves. Danger remains. Because even the strongest ideas are vulnerable to corruption, co-optation, or fatigue. And every system, no matter how idealistic, faces the challenge of succession. Who comes next? And will they carry the flame or blow it out? This is where Traore's greatest legacy may lie. Not in how long he holds power, but in how well he prepares others to hold it with integrity. The symbols are strong, the culture is shifting, but without education, without discipline, leadership training, without a new generation ready to inherit this vision, belief alone is not enough. And yet, there are signs of hope. Across Burkina Faso, young thinkers are rising. Civil society groups are forming not around personalities, but principles. Debates are shifting from who leads to what matters. That's when you know the idea is maturing. That's when revolutions begin to outgrow the man who lit them. We've seen the alternative. So many African nations have watched one strong leader fall, only to be replaced by chaos, infighting, or foreign puppetry. But here, something different might be happening, because the foundation isn't built on blind worship. It's built on memory, structure, and moral clarity. If this holds, if this belief survives beyond the man, then Burkina Faso may become more than a nation. It may become a model, a place where ideology becomes institution, where symbols become systems, where one man's vision becomes a people's legacy. But if it fails, if the belief fades, if the discipline cracks, if opportunists sneak in, then all this strength becomes fragile. All this hope becomes history. And that's why this moment matters so much. Because what's being tested isn't just Traore, it's the durability of dignity itself. Let us know, what do you think will happen when he's no longer in charge? Can the idea outlive the initiator? Can a system rooted in belief truly protect itself from within? We're listening. Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe, because the final chapter is next. And in that chapter, we face the deepest truth, the one thing that neither the West, nor enemies, nor even history itself can defeat, the force that truly makes a revolution eternal. This is it, the final layer, the one that no army can build, no spy can crack, and no enemy can erase. And before we begin, remember this: if you believe in something greater than fear, if you believe memory can guard a nation, subscribe now. This voice is yours too. And don't forget to leave a comment below. Let history know where you stood when it mattered. Every revolution ends the same way, in silence. Either the silence of defeat or the silence of legacy. And in Burkina Faso today, we still don't know which one it will be. But we do know this: something rare has returned. Something old. Something dangerous. Not in the way of weapons, but in the way of dreams. Because in the end, you can destroy a structure. You can censor a speech. But you can't kill a mission and once it lives inside a people. That's what has made this revolution different. It's not a rebellion. It's not a regime. It's a reminder, that dignity, when awakened, becomes ungovernable. Traore, whether you agree with him or not, has done something extraordinary. He made the people feel again, not just about politics, but about themselves. He spoke words that many had buried, that we are enough, that we will rise without permission, that no one will feed off our pain again. And those words are now bigger than him. They live in street murals where Sankara's eyes meet his. They echo in markets where vendors raise their heads a little higher. They ripple through the diaspora where exiles now speak not in shame, but in fire. The idea is no longer his. It belongs to the soil. And that's what foreign powers will never fully grasp. You can't assassinate a spirit. You can't sanction a dream. You can't bomb an idea that lives in songs, in classrooms, in kitchen tables. Once the people believe in something bigger than survival, they become unstoppable. In African history, we've seen betrayal, colonization, extraction, abandonment. But now we're seeing something else. A generation not just demanding justice, but building it, quietly, boldly, without blueprints, without permission. This isn't just about Burkina Faso. It's about every place where people were told to wait, to obey, to be patient. It's about the mothers who buried sons, the fathers who labored without land, the youth who looked up and saw only clouds. Now they see a mirror, and in that mirror, they see themselves, unchained. That's why this story matters. That's why it spreads. Because it says what so many were afraid to say. We are not too poor to govern ourselves. We are not too broken to rise. We are not too late to begin again. So what now? What will happen in 1 year, 5 years, 10? Will this fire grow or fade? That depends not on Traore, but on you, on us, on how fiercely we protect this fragile flame, not with guns, but with memory, not with fear, but with truth. Because in the end, history doesn't belong to the strong. It belongs to those who refuse to forget, those who build not for power, but for purpose. And today that purpose is rising, and it speaks with a voice the world has tried to silence for centuries. Let us hear your voice in the comments, in your community, in your choices. Speak not for Traore, but for the dignity that lives beyond him. Subscribe now, not just for more videos, but for the movement behind them. This is not the end. This is only the beginning. And to everyone watching, wherever you are, remember this. You can kill a man, but you can't kill a mission.